Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be my first update video on this 92 Chevy C1500 build I'm doing. The first thing I've done to this is I basically gone around, pulled trim, and found out that there's a fair bit of rust that's underneath all of this crap. I ended up trying to sand it down and use some rust encapsulator to work. And eventually it didn't work. Went there and I took off the brake drums and discs out of it and checked them. The drums on the back were seized up from the parking brake, and also got problems with where the lug nuts do not want to budge. And for this one, there is a pretty significant gap where it's essentially froze itself on there and it will not move. And I can't get it to move. The engine on it is just basically like last time. I cleaned it up some, but I have essentially well, it's just basically a blown temp sensor on here that whenever you start it without it hooked up, it won't idle, but it will run whenever it gets warmed up. Well, if this here, when you have it hooked up, it'll high idle when it's cold, and then when it gets hot, it won't idle. Found out the battery terminal is, well, at least the connector is pretty well shot. They went in, but battery from 2014 still running perfectly fine. It's got a good level of coolant. The air conditioner still works on it. Has almost no brake fluid on it. There's really no brakes. Whatever you do, there's no brakes on it. The interior, I ended up going and taking out the headliner because it was completely full of mold, and you can see the excess mold that doesn't want to come off of here from where I ended up pulling this out. But it looks, for me, for all I've checked, I can't find any rust. The whole place where it's leaking is right along here on the window seal. It was leaking from right here all the way over to the other side and down again. But now there's another leak here on the back glass. I'll put it where you can see it bulge when you press on it, where if it rains and you have heavy rain hitting in the back, it'll push it forward and you have rain that gets in through the split glass on it. And I wish to keep the split glass on it and not end up siliconing it completely full. But the bench seat on it, just don't mind the tools on it. The lock that's supposed to be on here is broke, so you hit a bump, the seat immediately shoots forward. The tools to change out your spare tire never came with it. Never came with a spare tire. And what I hate is with this whole thing, it sits weird because someone put 235s, so stock size tires in the rear, and they put 215s in the front to give it a dragster look. And honestly, I hate it because you can't tell if it's run low on oil, you can't tell if it's over full on oil, can't tell anything. But the good note, all the stuff on here still works, and I'll go and try to start this. That was horrible, so I end up looking like I need to get my jump starter. Try to jump start it. But all in all, everything on here runs fine. Just think because of this, my battery won't stay charged, or at least it says it won't hold charge. So I'll grab my jump starter and I'll be back here to get in, hopefully get this thing around. Someone left key on for about 2 weeks and the battery was 100% dead. So I charged it for a week and a half on the jump starter. And then I put it to jump and started cranking on it. And it went. And by went, I mean it finally went. case any of you are wondering, this is the particular jump starter I use. I don't know how to say it. All I know is it's 200 amp engine start 40 amp booster, 2 amp charge, and hopefully this will be enough to get this thing to start. Just give this a minute. Well, I'll give it a minute. I can go ahead and say with certainty the radio on this don't work. That tape player will not work. The AC works on here, and surprisingly it still blows cold air. And all the headlights on it work. Just let's see if this thing will crank. It will run the parking brake. I don't know if it will focus or not, but it's got a checkage light that I don't know what it is because I don't have an OBD1 scanner, and the parking brake will stay on. I can't get it to come off no matter how much I finagle the wires or the brake itself. We need to shut that jump starter off. It's kicking the battery around. But other than that, this here runs perfectly fine. The only second major problem I came up with it is when you first start it. Today it's not doing it, but when you first start it, it likes to burn oil. And you can see, because on normal exhaust you shouldn't have oil coming out of the exhaust pipe, or in my case white and black smoke. And I'll try to get it where you can see it off the mirror. I'll roll the window down. Look where you can see it when I rev it. Hang on. It smokes, but it's not bad enough that I'm going to worry about it. The dash up here is broke, but I mean anything from the 90s that's going to have stuff that's broke on it. The door panels are faded back to white on it. Seat's got a big hole in it on this side. And if you look closely, you can see where the seat's supposed to be attached. But it's not something I'm going to worry about on this here. The floor on it is not very good, but eventually that will get fixed. And while this is running and charging the battery, I'll go ahead and show you what the headliner on this thing looked like. And it was in some pretty dire straits. This is the fabric on it. You look on some places and you think, huh, it's perfectly fine. You start looking at the back, you start seeing more mold. And then you flip it over to the back side and it's nothing but mold and excess glue. That's the same with this. You can see the mold and glue all over everything on it. Paint on it is shot. The bed liner is still good, but that's mainly because it's just a slot-in bed liner. Check the bed underneath it, it's perfectly fine. Try to finagle this where you can see in here. know how well you can see in there, but I'll try to get it where you can see it. But it's not really rusted. It's got spots where it started, and I end up sanding it off. The rear bumper, I can say with most certainty that someone's had an accident with it, because why else would you have this much gap in between your main body and your bumper, unless you put it on there and didn't know what you were doing. You can go there and put it on backwards. You can also tell because there's this. That's supposed to be part of the tailgate. Another problem I figured out when opening tailgate is that this one completely shot out and got lodged in the bed, while this one surprisingly is perfectly fine. You can also see here, I'll lift it up and show you what the bed looks like as best I can. It's got its problems, but it will work for my purposes of using it as a work truck. But in regards to the engine on here, everything works. Got the air conditioner turned off, but it does work. The only thing I do not like about this engine is this little hose here, right here. I'm going to have to show you. This hose here is supposed to go down there into your exhaust manifold and go, and basically whenever your engine's cold, you start it up, it heats the air, it runs in here and it starts sucking in hot air so that it can go there and warm the engine up faster by burning hot air, is what the whole purpose of it is. But if you have a mouse or anything that wants to get in there, all they have to do is get the button and curl up in there, and it can crawl straight into your air filter. Because I'll show you on here after I get here loosened up. There is one pro of this, that the air filter on here was basically brand new when I got it, or at least look a little bit cleaner. It looks brand new. See, there's the whole fuel injection setup for this thing. But it works pretty well. It needs to take the gas read on it. Go and get everything to go and run good on it. Now, I don't know how well you can hear me, because the engine's next to me quite loud, whether you can hear it on camera or not. And also, it's a pain trying to finagle that crap on there instead of doing like the old generation having just a single rod on there for you to get it. Now, another thing I don't like about this generation truck is there's your air intake. If you run over water in this truck and it comes up into your fender, you're screwed, because it will go and run straight into your air intake and it will flood your engine. That's the same with Volvo, whether you have diesel, V6 like this one, V8s, they all did the same. But I'll show you what they did with the same exact engine just 6 years later. But yet again, this isn't a Blazer instead of a truck, but it's similar engine, fuel injection. They decided to move it over here and play it smart and put it in its own air box. That's got an air intake off the grill. They go there and keep you from going there if you run into water and it happens to splash up in here, from it going. And if you don't happen to have your wheel liner in there, or like this one where it's falling apart, it goes up into your fender here, and it will just basically suck it straight into the engine. Another pro I do like about this is these mirrors. They're the same as the old trucks. Everyone makes a replacement for them. The replacements are really good. They don't vibrate nowhere near as bad as the newer version does. Then you have on here, there's another problem I'm having with it, and that is, well, the lack of the secondary seal on here. There's supposed to be another seal that runs from here to here on this, from up here all the way down to here. They go down, and that's supposed to keep water that flows along this channel here and down the door jamb, instead of it going and hitting here and building up and eventually working its way into the cab. Now I've ended up fixing this where it started leaking on here. I don't know if you can see it, but I've siliconed in down here on the bottom on the inside of it before I put it back up in to go and attempt to seal as best I can. You can see where it started rusting on there. Right up here is a little bit worse, but the top side of the cab, it's perfectly fine. There's not a whole lot of problems with it. It's not peeled on there, the paint's not gone. It's perfectly fine up there. Get on this, you crawl under, and there's one major thing I don't like, and that is it has a big exhaust leak. Let's see if I can get you right up to it. See the holes? And since I don't know if this is thoroughly going to be my truck or not, I'm not willing to go there and do a bunch of work on it. But the frame itself is perfectly fine. The body's good. Even the cab mounts are good. That's why this thing will ride a lot better than what my actual truck will. That and there, you can see on here where last time we took it out, it decided to rub the exhaust here on the drive shaft. Well, you look at the drive shaft, and I don't know if many of you can see the difference between this and real life, but that there is a much bigger drive shaft than what it came factory. So someone on here has essentially broke the drive shaft, and instead of putting a stock one on it, they decided to put a bigger drive shaft in it, but they put in sealed U-joints. And these are the OEM style sealed U-joints that are one big pain to go and get loose. But mainly for this truck that's rust free, exhaust, I'm going to end up changing over. The cap leaks, the manifolds leak. The tailpipe itself looks like it's about to start rusting through. The shocks on here are basically shot. I've got the rear port brake on this side that keeps locking up. But and it officially ran out of gas, so that'll be something to buy. The cab corners are perfectly fine, but somebody has gone along here and decided to put seam sealer along this sill, which concerns me that someone has gone up in here and changed this and put seam sealer back on this bottom, which could very well mean that either it was in an accident or it completely rusted out. But looking at the frame on here and all of the other major parts that usually rust out, where it still got the factory undercoating on them, it to me appears perfectly fine in here. So I'm thinking more or less at one point in time there was an accident, and they basically ended up changing it because you can tell that or someone has underlined this because you can see the overspray from them underlining it. You can see it right there. You can see where this is a replacement panel, where they've gone. Well, it might be a factory, because I can't tell on this one. On my other one, that's a 98, it doesn't have these right here. It's just a fully welded seam all the way down in here. It stops. But what I'm struggling for is to figure out what the heck this is. And none of my other truck never had this on it, and no other trucks I've seen from this year and body style and even the trim of this ever had this. So I'm assuming someone put like a rock guard or something on there on the fenders and stuff. Put that on a boost charge for now. Washer fluid, it's still got fluid, but it's got crap that's built up in it. The brake system, it basically needs a real big flush. The fluid itself is really horrible. The servo computer for it, I don't know if it works because I haven't tromped down on the brakes yet to see. Now, at one point in time, this basically has had a catastrophic oil leak. So I'm beginning to wonder if this here, if the engine oil dipstick ended up getting pressurized, shot out, sprayed over here, or since the way this looks, if someone had in originally a V8, it could have been a V6 car, took out the V6, put in a V8, raced it, from what I can see, blew the motor, and then put back in the V6 and parked it. To me, that's what it looks like as a great big possibility for this. I'm going to see if this will start or if it's just completely out of gas. It's basically out of gas. But everything on here in the interiors works. It's just I more or less need to go there and redo the headliner on it, which I'll end up doing a video, but the videos on this is going to essentially cease for a while until I can figure out what's happening with the status of the title, because for all I know the title is up in mid-air, whether or not it's this year I'll get a title, next year, or 3-4 years down the road. So I really don't know. There is one thing I think is kind of funny about this truck. You've not only got regular cup holders, you've also got cup holders on your glove box. I don't understand exactly why they did this. They maybe thought, well, it's a work truck, it might be putting a bunch of water or something up in here for them to use at work. But I don't know what it is that they did with it. The main reason why I like this truck is I like the whole body style of this. This is why I got my regular truck. It's a 98 model. That's the K series. It's a four-wheel drive. But on it, it's an extended cab. Well, it's extended cab regular bed. On it, so basically your bed only goes to here. On it, this last little bit here is your rest of your cab. But I'm hoping that I can end up getting this one and using it as either a project truck or a work truck. Don't know exactly what I'm going to make out of it. I don't know if it's going to be like a racer or something, because it's already got the wheels and set up like it should be. I don't know if it's going to be, you know, jack the thing up, make it look off-road as a two-wheel drive. I don't know what exactly to do with it yet. I'm kind of basically stopped on this. Do know one thing I'm wanting to do, and that is to change these halogen sealed headlights to LEDs. Now, I don't know if they make these as LEDs, but I'm going to attempt to find if they have LEDs. I know they make these as an LED with LEDs in them, but I personally am not much of a fan for halogen lights. I mean, this one has them, but I really don't like them. I guess this is going to wrap up. Well, yeah, that's basically going to wrap up this one, because most of the stuff on this is shot. The antenna on it will end up changing for a stubby one, because this one, if you tromp down the gas, what the immediate thing it does is fly backwards like that, and every time I look over I think it's going to hit the cab, and it annoys me. It also annoys me if you hit a little tiny brush, it immediately does that, and that annoys me. But it's basically all I'm going to do for a good while on this truck until the guy I got it off of comes up from North Carolina to get the title for it. Because here's the last time it was on the road, or at least registered to be on the road, and it expired in January 2016, and it's July 2020, so it's been sitting for at least 4 years without being driven. But everything on it works. Eventually, once I get the tire one, the first things I wind up doing is working here on the engine. I wind up changing the oil out of it for high mileage Supertech or Supertech filter. Want to flush the brake system out, put in all new synthetic brake fluid. Want to change all the washer fluid to all season fluid. Want to attempt to clean out the evap canister in case it's filled up. Want to work on, I might go and start taking the R12 out of this and converting it. I might not, because I found some people that's allowed to sell it to me that has a license for it, that they'll put it in, charge me for it. So I don't know yet if I'm going to do that. Do know the radiator works perfectly fine, because when you start it up, the highest it will go is 150. But again, the sensor's basically shot, so I don't know if the sensor is just saying that or if it's working or not, because according to the reservoir, it's perfectly fine. It doesn't go up above that right there. It stays below hot on there, so you might be a little bit low on coolant, but as long as it's not really low, I'm not going to worry about it. And that's it.